All right, so the fourth Final Destination movie did have some fun moments, but I do consider that movie rock bottom for the franchise, even though that movie made a ton of money. But I feel like going into the fifth movie, the production was saying to themselves, oh, okay, you guys want a crazy, massive premonition again? All right, we got you. How about a huge twist at the end of the movie as well, which, yes, this movie does have. But did all of that stuff work in this movie? Well, let's talk about it. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Mad Blood, and welcome to movie number 5 in my Final Destination review series. Obviously, not surprisingly called Final Destination 5 from 2011, the second movie in the franchise to try to capitalize on that whole 3D craze during this era. But with this movie, especially in comparison to the fourth movie, it's a little less gimmicky with 3D stuff. It's a little bit more subtle. And the Final Destination 4, was technically supposed to be the last movie in this franchise. Yeah, the last movie in a horror franchise. Yes, never seen that before, but because that movie made $190 million, the studio was basically like, hey, you remember that whole, last movie in the franchise thing? Well, that was kind of more of a suggestion. And so basically the premise for Final Destination 5 is this guy, Sam, and the rest of his coworkers are going away on this work retreat thing on this bus. And they end up on this bridge that ends up collapsing as all part of this whole premonition that Sam is having. And then not surprisingly, some of the people do end up surviving because of Sam warning them about everything. And then, of course, death comes back to get them all in crazy, horrific ways in the order they were supposed to originally die. And a part of the twist in this one, which is revealed thanks to Tony Todd, who does make a small appearance back in this movie, which is great to see him. Rest in peace, Tony Todd. But that twist is revealed to be that if you kill someone, they will essentially take your place in death, and then you will get to live out their remaining years. And boy, oh boy, do we also get another huge twist at the end of this movie, which I mentioned just a second ago. That is that this movie is actually a prequel to the first movie. You sneaky little bastards, which I do feel like they did a pretty good job of hiding throughout the movie. So we start off by watching everyone get ready for this work retreat. We're being introduced to the new characters, and I will say, I feel like everything that happens in this sequence leading up to the actual big premonition honestly is terrible. Like, I don't care about your breakup. Who is this rock and roll chick who's stripping down to her bra in front of her work, in front of her coworkers? What is happening here? Just what is this mishmash of these weird personalities that you're just vomiting at us? I mean, I feel like I'm just sitting here wondering, okay, these characters are obviously going to be pretty terrible in this movie, so I'm already kind of thinking, okay, how quickly can we kill off these characters in hilarious, brutal ways? But right after this, we do get that massive opening premonition, which I feel like is one of the best premonitions in this entire franchise, especially for a guy like me that grew up in Northern California and grew up driving across so many scary ass bridges throughout my life, always hearing stories about not only the people who died building those bridges, but also the bridges that had collapsed. Like in the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. That earthquake killed so many people. There was even a point where the Bay Bridge, a bridge that I have driven across many, many times in my life, the top of that bridge collapsed, killing something like 40 people in that earthquake, which, on top of the fact that I am scared shitless of heights as well, this is an opening premonition, like I said, that is pulled off really, really well and really hits for me. And I've mentioned this before, but with these opening premonitions, one of the things that really separates the great ones from just the good ones is how relatable the opening premonition is. Like in the fourth movie, the whole NASCAR race thing, I feel like is a little bit more niche. Whereas in the first movie, obviously the plane, the second movie, obviously the logging truck and just the big pileup on the highway, which is very relatable to all of us. And then the third movie, you've got roller coasters, which is pretty damn relatable to a lot of us as well. And then this movie, just utilizing everything that's scary about going across a massive bridge over the water. I also think it's really impressive how they were able to just make all of this look really, really real. I feel like, yes, there's some CGI in there that looks a little janky at times with some of the kills, But overall, just the expansiveness of everything with this bridge and all of that, it looks pretty damn real. They even add a little extra in there, making us scared of those trucks that carry those long wire things. It goes through the guy's body, through his face, and then he falls off of the bridge and then just splats onto the foundation of the bridge. It's just like, damn. But yeah, just a very effective and I feel like a really fun opening sequence, opening premonition in this entire franchise. Now, this franchise isn't exactly known for Academy Award winning acting or anything like that, but there is a certain level of tolerable acting that I feel like you have to have in at least a big theatrical release like this. And this movie sometimes tiptoes that line of barely being tolerable and not tolerable. I mean, overall, I feel like it does get the job done, but I feel like the acting overall and the cast is kind of on the same level of that fourth movie. At times, I actually prefer the cast in the fourth movie over the fifth movie. But that's kind of like saying, do you prefer fucking Carl's Jr. or do you prefer Long John Silver? I mean, both are shitty fast food, but you just kind of have to ask yourself, okay, which pure junk am I willing to ingest that particular day? Now, with that said, we do get some of the most memorable death scenes in this entire franchise in this movie. There are a couple in particular that I think are pretty fun. The LASIK death, that's a classic one. The gymnastics death, that's an all-timer in the franchise, in my opinion. Even the massage parlor death is pretty fun as well. My one gripe, though, with the death scenes in this movie, when you compare them to some of the other great ones in the franchise, is that although, yes, in this movie they are gory, and yes, they are funny, and they are a lot of fun, but still, I think the most effective death scenes in this franchise are the ones that are really, really relatable to the general population. In this movie, yes, the gymnastics death is hilarious, and it's a great all-time death scene in this franchise, but it's very niche. I'm sure 95% of you watching this video right now have never been to a gymnastics meet in your entire life. Yeah, you've probably watched it on the Olympics or something like that, but still, pretty niche. Even the LASIK death, pretty niche as well. But stuff like swimming pools, car washes, tanning beds in the early 2000s, trains, buses, the gym, those are just way more relatable stuff that you're going to come across on a regular basis throughout your life. And yes, we love the actual deaths in this franchise, but I feel like one of the things in particular that was really missing from the fourth movie was just the buildup, the anxiety, the great all-time classic fake outs that we've came used to in the other three movies previously in the franchise before that fourth one. And then again, they bring it back. I think they do a really good job with this gymnastics death with the fake outs. You've got the nail of the screw there on the balance beam as she's doing her routine. She just barely misses it as she's doing the dismount there. The water almost touches her feet and electrocutes her right before she throws her towel on top of it. And on top of that, it's effective for me personally because my family is a pretty big gymnastics family. My wife was a gymnast growing up. We've been to a ton of University of Utah gymnastics meets, 10-time national champions, go Utes. But yeah, the gymnastics death is one of the most memorable deaths in this entire franchise. I mean, that shot just really lingers on her. Her fingers twitching. She's folded up like a little pretzel. You know, her spine is sticking out. The bone in her leg is sticking out. And like I said, that shot just lingers on this. I mean, I feel like death is sitting there like, you should have drank your milk. And one thing definitely different about this movie is towards the end of the movie, before the big flash forward sequence, they aren't really fighting death in the traditional sense that we've came used to in this franchise before. They're not at a fair trying to fight off all the crazy stuff that's going on there. You know, death isn't trying to blow up their car or electrocute them or anything like that. They aren't really just fighting through some sort of a premonition. You know, there's no movie theater blowing up or anything like that. Thanks to Tony Todd, who told them basically if you kill somebody, like I mentioned earlier, that you could potentially have them take your place in death and then you can live out their remaining years. One of the characters here, we're kind of exploring like trauma after just what it's like losing all these people, losing your girlfriend in these situations that we like to call final destinations. So they're exploring that angle of it. They're showing us one of the characters just completely has lost it up to this point and is convinced that Sam's girlfriend does not deserve to live. So he's going to try to kill her to take her place. He's not going to try to kill Sam because Sam, you know, death is already coming for him. So that's not really going to help. But I think the whole fight sequence that goes down in the kitchen at the restaurant he works at is pretty fun. And overall, yes, it's kind of a unique thing that they do add to this franchise. So there's something to be said about that. It's not mind-blowing or anything, but it's a little something that kind of pushes the story forward, adds a little something unique here to the franchise. And yes, as this franchise likes to do, we get our classic Final Destination fast forward scene, which is a scene that I personally always look forward to. It's just kind of a fun little way to send you out of the movie theater and also just remind you that death does not believe in happy endings because death is eventually coming for all of us. But in this movie, this isn't just a little funny send-off at the end of this movie. No, this is the biggest twist in this entire franchise because up until this point, we have heard our character really toiling with this idea of eventually moving to Paris because he's a chef or he's a cook and he wants to kind of further his career, but that would mean that he would have to basically break up with his girlfriend who he loves. They've been kind of battling over all of that, which is, kind of a lame angle to the story, but they tie that in obviously here because 2 weeks later, now we see our characters finally heading to Paris. Yes, I said Paris. Does that sound familiar? Does that remind you of anything else we've seen earlier in the franchise? I remember sitting there thinking, wait, hold on, is that Alex and Carter? Oh, this is what we're doing here. And yeah, if you've been paying attention, yes, that means the return of Flight 180. And to me, just personally, I can never not think it's cool to finally get like the POV of what really happened on the plane after Flight 180 took off after the premonition. Because if you remember in the first movie, we never really got to see that. Yes, we got to see the premonition, but never got to see what happened after Alex and everybody else got off the plane, right? They were inside of the airport and then we just see the plane explode through the window behind them. Then the window breaks and shatters all over them, that whole deal. But now we do get to see a glimpse into what happened. And yeah, not fun for the passengers, obviously. And damn, Sam's girlfriend Molly gets sucked out of the plane and then cut in half on one of the wings. And then everybody else just basically gets the Terminator 2 treatment, turned into crispy little scallops. But then that's not it. We then cut to the guy who traded places with the shitty coworker at the paper factory. They're doing like a celebration of his shitty life thing. And he finds out that that guy actually had an enlarged blood vessel in his brain and didn't have much time to live, which if you know and you've been paying attention, he traded his life for his, so he got to live out the remaining years for him, and he was supposed to die any minute anyways, so clearly traded places with the wrong guy, and then boom, the tire of the plane falls through the roof, crushing him and his body parts fly at the screen. About as Final Destination-y of an ending as you can possibly imagine. And I think, personally, it's a pretty damn good time. And overall, I look at this movie as a V shape. In the beginning, we get a great opening premonition, playing on something pretty much all of us have done, driving over a massive ass, pretty scary bridge with some fun kills, great expansiveness, shot really, really well. But then everything, it kind of goes down. Everything that happens really in the middle of this movie, to a certain extent, some of those death scenes are fun, like I mentioned earlier, but still, kind of the stuff that happens in the middle of this movie, I feel like I can take it or leave it. I feel like we spend way too much time mourning characters that I never really cared about, also spend too much time watching characters just whine about like, oh, should I go to Paris or not? And I think that she's the one. But then I feel like right back up to a really fun twist, making this a true prequel to that original movie. And also just saying Death's ultimate design for these characters was to have them end up on Flight 180 anyways. And yeah, you could say the whole Flight 180 twist at the end of the movie maybe is a little bit forced, maybe just some fan service there, but for me personally, I think it's fun. Now, to me, this is not the best movie in the franchise. This movie does not have that early 2000s nostalgia or charm like the first three movies have, which adds a little something extra to those movies for me, just personally. But this is a fun entry in the franchise and does have some of the most memorable death scenes in the franchise as well. And just to add to that, I feel like there's almost nothing in this movie that to me is clearly better than what we see in those first 3 movies. Yes, the opening premonition in this movie is a lot of fun, like I said, great kills, just a great sequence overall. But like I said, the cast, not great by any means. And yes, we do get a couple really fun death sequences, but what kind of knocks them just a little bit, like I mentioned earlier, is gymnastics, kind of niche, LASIK, kind of niche. But yes, like I said, we do get a really fun ending to this movie. And also, unlike that 4th movie, which I feel like is just not good enough to convert non-Final Destination fans to all of a sudden jump on the love train for this franchise, this movie not only has enough to satisfy the current Final Destination fans, it definitely has that blueprint, that foundation of the franchise that we've came to love, but with that opening premonition and the ending to this movie that I think are a lot of fun, it does have the potential to convert some non-fans of the franchise who have either never seen the movies before or people also who are kind of on the fence. I think there's enough in Final Destination 5 to potentially convert some people to this franchise. But all right, everybody, that is my review of Final Destination 5. Make sure you leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Really helps the video out a lot. Also, right away, I want to thank my Patreon supporters and my channel members as well. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. I really, really do appreciate it. Really helps to keep the lights on around here. If you want some more videos from me right now, go ahead and check out one of these videos next to me. If you don't want to miss future videos on the channel, the best way to do that is to make sure you subscribe. Also, all of my social media links will be down below in the description if you want to follow me over there. But thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, really do appreciate it. My name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.